Okay, so we have got Tom, and he is going to tell us all about what to expect with these government reforms coming up the river. That's right, that's right. So welcome, Tom. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Kia ora. Good morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Tom Lee. I'm a Principal Policy Advisor in the Strategic Policy team here at the Council. And this briefing is to provide an update or a reminder about 4 central government reforms that are underway that are going to have an impact on local government. You'll be aware of these reforms to differing degrees already, but the session today is to provide you with background information to gain a shared understanding of the reforms and also to provide some context to future discussions and future briefings that you'll be having. Right. So it is busy times ahead. In the coming months, you'll likely be asked to consider making a council submission on some of these reforms, or you may want to consider them within the wider, more strategic discussions that you'll be having, such as when discussing council priorities, the long-term plan, or engaging with other councils or ministers. In this session, I will run through at a high level 4 key reforms. That's Water, Local Government Act, the Building Act, and resource management reforms. I'll spend just a few minutes briefly covering off what each reform is about, what it means to the council at a high level, and where the reform is up to. At the end of the overview of all the reforms, there'll be some time for questions. I'm not an expert on all of these reforms, so I do have some colleagues present that will help answer any questions you might have, noting that actually there's a couple away sick today, so we'll do our best to answer what questions you have, but if there's anything we can't answer today, we're happy to get back to you at a later time. And just to note again that in the future, you will receive more detailed briefings on these topics as and when they are needed. There we go. Thank you. All right, water reform. You'll be well across this already, so I won't dwell on it too much. This year, the council decided to deliver drinking, storm and wastewater services through an in-house delivery model. This followed 80% support from the public in consultation for this. And roughly a third of councils in New Zealand have also chosen this same model. This means that the council retains control and responsibility and accountability for water, and it also allows us to keep water delivery integrated with other infrastructure planning and community outcomes. Following this decision and as part of meeting our requirements to our government requirements, we submitted our water services delivery plan to the government, which outlined how we will sustainably deliver and fund water services across Christchurch and the Banks Peninsula over the next decade. This plan was approved by DIA just about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Here we go. So you'll be well aware probably what this means for the council. We've considered the impacts here under 3 general headings. Financial, so the impact here is largely relates to how the council will fund water services, noting that there's a significant investment in water infrastructure needed over the coming decades. And there will be greater transparency on water rates and charges going forward as well. In terms of governance, councillors will have direct accountability for water services, and there will be decisions required and expectations around the standard of water services, the funding and affordability of water services, and other considerations like environmental performance. The other impact for council is that we need to implement the local water done well approach into our everyday delivery. So we need to make sure that we're implementing our strategies and have the right systems and processes in place, which is a useful way to segue into the next steps. Getting the hang of it. So the next steps are here are all about implementation. We have our system, we must have our systems and structures in place by 2028. So these 3 things are broadly the key things that the council is focusing on next. So developing a water services strategy, and that'll set the long-term direction, the levels of service, and help align funding and investment decisions for water. We'll be implementing the ring-fenced funding, making sure that our planning and financial systems and reporting are enabled to be able to ring-fence water funding. And similarly for our oversight and reporting mechanisms, getting things lined up, such as our benchmarking and regular reporting. So the takeaway about this reform is that it is well underway and that we're working on embedding the necessary elements in our business. Oh, moving now. Oh gosh, there we go.
I've got 3 questions on water. Is that right? Or would you rather go to 4, 5, 6? So we'll do those, or would you rather wait till the end?
I think it might be best to wait to the end because I think they're just to keep on track. If I like to start. But I'm happy to. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Local Government Act reform. So many of you will recall this. This reform is based essentially on the government position. I've put some quotes there on the presentation that sort of outline the rhetoric from the government in terms of the Local Government Act reform. You have the Prime Minister saying that councils need to rein in the fantasies and do the basics brilliantly, and that doing the basics brilliantly is a bit of a catchphrase for the Prime Minister when it comes to the local government reform. And also the Minister for Local Government saying that local government has drifted from their core responsibilities and should focus on the essentials. So the government have released the Local Government Systems Improvement Amendment Bill. This is the purpose of this is to address the cost of living. The government thinks that rates are a key driver of household inflation and also that councils are lacking some fiscal discipline. There are a list of things that are included in the bill, but the main ones, and we've discussed those previously with the council, but the main ones are that the removes the 4 well-beings from the Local Government Act. It has a new list of core services that government will be required to focus on. That gets inserted into the Act. There are new measuring and reporting requirements, transparency and accountability ones as well, and the bill also provides some regulatory relief. You remember that rates caps are not included in this bill, but the bill does prepare for a rates cap system. In August this year, the council made a submission to government on the bill, and essentially that questioned the ability for the bill to actually ease rates, as we didn't think it focused on the key drivers of what is causing rates increases. The council wanted government to do more to ease the regulatory burden. We identified some risks that will need to be managed with the bill, and also the council wanted government to work more closely with councils. So what does this mean for council? The main thing here is the increased scrutiny on council spending decisions. So what the council is spending on core activities versus non-core activities, for example, will be reported on, and there'll be benchmarks around and comparing around what the council is spending on. And also there'll be increased scrutiny around what it means for rates increases. The council will also have to implement the new requirements. So those that I've just talked about, for instance, around reporting and benchmarking. There'll be a standardised code of conduct. There'll be standardised standing orders, which I think you'll be discussing next after this session. There are new governance principles and so on. So there's a bunch of stuff that the council will be implementing based on the bill. And the other thing to note that is when this bill was released, that the minister also noted that there is more change to come. So we've talked about the rates caps already. That will be, we'll know more about that soon, but also the minister has said that there will be his intention for the government to review things like the long-term plan framework and planning, reporting and auditing requirements of councils. So just to know that this is not quite the end of Local Government Act reform with this bill. So in terms of next steps, the Select Committee are going to report back in a couple of weeks on the 25th of November to Parliament. So we'll have to wait and see if there are any changes being suggested via the Select Committee process. But it will likely that the bill will be passed sometime early next year, if all goes to plan. In terms of rates caps, the policy is going before Cabinet before Christmas. What this means is that their assumption is that the legislation will be sometime in the early stages of next year. What we don't know about the rates cap policy is what that policy yet looks like, and we're not quite sure either what the decision or what Cabinet will be looking at before Christmas. So that's what I mean by that is whether there is legislation ready to go or if they'll just be considering the policy. So there's still a lot unknown about what is to come on rates caps. And just to also note that the reviews of the planning and LTP process and everything that the Minister has signalled will be are planned to be coming next term for government. So that'll be next after the election for them, when they will look to maybe do some work on those. So the summary here is that the amendment bill continues its journey through Parliament, and that there are some future reforms signalled as well. Now moving to Building Act reform. So there are a raft of changes happening in the Building Act and building consents space at the moment. Essentially what the government is trying to do in this space is to make building easier and faster. The Minister says these reforms will speed up new homes and infrastructure by cutting red tape, which tends to drive up costs and produce unnecessary inefficiencies. So some of these reforms have already happened or are already underway, and there's a list of those on the slide there. Just to touch on a couple of those examples that show the government's intent in this space. So making it easier to build granny flats. In the future, you won't need a building consent to build a granny flat if certain criteria is met. So if it's of a certain simple design, a certain size, and the building is done by a professional, that means you won't longer need a consent to do that. So that legislation has passed and will come into effect next year. Another one is the changes to the earthquake-prone buildings, which is a new risk-based approach that the government is taking, which is more proportionate and focuses on higher risk buildings rather than low risk buildings. But some more reform will be on the way soon under the new bill. And so this is a new bill will encourage voluntary consolidation of building consent authorities. It will change liability settings from joint and several liability to proportionate liability, and will also allow a self-certification scheme for house builders, plumbers and drain layers. The impact for council. So these are designed to speed up what the Minister says this is a sluggish consenting system and stop driving up the costs. So these reforms are relatively significant reforms for the council. It will change the way we do some things, what we consent for, how and what we inspect and what we're liable for and so on. In terms of the upcoming changes to liability, the government wants to do this because they think councils can be risk averse to signing off building consents, as sometimes councils end up having to foot the bill for situations where compensation is required. So the changes would mean that the council is less exposed on this front, but it may also mean that others, such as homeowners, might be more. And in regard to the consolidation of BCAs, the government think there are essentially too many across the country and thinks that consolidation would drive more consistency in decisions and it would be also a more efficient way to share resources. So we think that there will be some BCAs that will want to consolidate, but at the moment we don't think there is much value for us. But just to note also that the Canterbury Mayoral Forum is doing some work on a regional BCA as well and what that might look like. So in terms of next steps for the Building Act reform, the bill is around the corner. It'll be late this year or early next year. And that's the bill that will cover off the self-certification, the consolidation and liability policies. So in the meantime, staff are going to monitor those proposals and continue engaging with the government. We'll be actively involved in those regional discussions that are happening. We're preparing to implement the changes that are required, and we'll also update you further as those reforms progress. And now the final reform, which is resource management. So there is significant work underway to reform the resource management system and replace the Resource Management Act. The intent here is to simplify the planning system and remove red tape with a view to making things happen faster, unlocking development and growth, and while safeguarding the environment and improving regulatory quality. So some of these are quite similar to the Building Act objectives as well that we just mentioned. So the government sees transforming the resource management system as the single most important thing to do to lift economic performance. So the RMA will be replaced by two new pieces of legislation: the Planning Bill, which will regulate land use planning, and the Natural Environments Bill, which will focus on protecting and enhancing natural resources. In July this year, Minister Bishop, the Minister for RMA Reform, told councils to stop work on new planning changes, preventing notification of new plans until December 2027, and also told councils to withdraw plan changes that haven't yet had a hearing. This is to relieve council staff time progressing new plans when RMA reform is coming. There are some exemptions to this plan stop rule, and our council will be applying to the government for an exemption for 5 plan changes. The council has made some submissions on the reforms to date, supporting the efficiency improvements and the clearer guidance, but it has also raised some concerns about balancing growth and environmental outcomes and minimising the fiscal impacts on councils. So the impact for council, well, we're waiting to see what that new legislation looks like. But what we can see so far is that it is likely to change the council's roles and responsibilities when it comes to city planning and resource consenting and such. There will be funding and finance implications of transitioning to the new systems. And there will also be likely implications on resources, which is staff, the skills and capabilities required, and any new systems that we need. Obviously, changes to the planning rules will influence how the city grows. So it'll be important for us to understand how the reforms align with our current strategic goals. And also all of this is to say that it will be a period of change and uncertainty coming up and potentially over the next couple of years. For example, as we manage the end of the old system and start preparing for the new system, that'll put some pressure on our resources. We'll also have to think about how we determine our priorities. We don't yet know the outcomes of our exemption requests, and potentially there could be a change of government as well. And as you'll well be aware, the RMA is quite a political area, so a change of government just sort of adds to the uncertainty as well if that were to happen. This is just a diagram here that shows the RMA reform in the bigger picture, the timeframes and activities that have been happening. There's a lot going on there. Essentially, you can see the other related activities and reforms that have been happening in relation to the RMA. Phases 1 and 2 are the phases that have been underway. And what we're talking about today is that bottom section, which is phase 3 replacement legislation. So this is the final stage of the government's legislative approach to resource management reform. You'll also see that introducing the bill in Parliament is imminent, and the timeframes mean that implementation will be in 2027. This is another diagram that essentially shows a similar story, but shows the sequencing of RMA reform. So you can see where we've come from up to this point in end of 24 and through 2025. Again, showing that the bill will be released soon, become law in 2026, all going to plan, and then it is 2027 when councils will be expected to implement the new reforms in the planning. So in terms of steps for RMA, so essentially we're waiting for the new legislation. Originally, we have been expecting it this month. It might be next month. We're waiting with bated breath, but it is imminent. And so when that happens, we will analyse the bills, brief you on them, and we'll plan to make submissions on those bills as well. So that's the end of the information on the reforms, but just a couple very short points to finish off. You'll see that across the reforms, there are some themes from the government that sort of stretch across all of them. And a lot of that is about making things simpler, making things more efficient, and making things more focused. That is certainly seems to be the direction of this government for local government. It is a noisy space, this area of government reforms. There's a lot going on, and there is a lot of public commentary and analysis to these reforms as well. So staff will keep you informed, and you will get more information and more in-depth briefings when we know more, and also when we're seeking a decision or direction from you. But hopefully this has provided you a bit of a reminder of the information or added some context for your future decisions and upcoming discussions. So there's a lot there, but I'm happy to try and answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Tom. That is very good. We have a fair few here. Aaron, please, then Vic.
Yeah, can we go back to the water all the way back? Right. Yes, so under the financial, you got to, it will put pressure on funding and greater transparency is required on rates and charges for water. Is there going to be, I've asked this question many times, is there going to be a standardised system across the country on the way water's charged? And if it's a standalone entity, can it charge based on property value, or does it have to charge on volume because it's a standalone entity? And if you do a quick Google search, it says in New Zealand that you cannot charge for utilities. I'm not sure how we're doing it, but you cannot charge for utilities based on property value, only on usage.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the full knowledge to be able to answer that one, but what that bullet point is referring to then essentially is around what the new system will do will be, it'll be very clear what the council collects on water and what we are spending on water, because it has to be ring fenced. So the money, the income that the council gets through water rates and through water charges has to be spent on water, can't be spent on anything else, but also what the council collects in other ways via for other services can't be spent on water either. So that's what that bullet point is referring to, around having the greater transparency around the charges for water. I don't today have the answers for you on the volume questions.
Thanks, Sarah. Victoria, then Pauline.
Oh, thanks, Tom. I've also got questions on water reform, just a couple. Given that the water services delivery plan has been approved, does that mean that the ring fencing arrangements and plan and that framework, that has been approved also, and now it's only a matter of implementation of that framework?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay. And is the oversight and reporting on the water coming to F&P or our main council meeting?
I'm not sure, but I can get back to you on that one.
Okay. And then the final question is just basically in relation to the budget. We've known that these reforms are coming. Have we got sufficient budget in place at the moment, or are we expecting a bit of a revamp and an increase in annual plan and long-term plan?
Do you mean across all reforms? Yeah, at the moment, as far as I'm aware, we do. We're sufficiently budgeted for. Some of the reforms we're yet to see the extent of what they will be. But yeah, we can provide any further updates if we do, on those questions around resourcing if we need them to you.
Pauline, yeah.
That was kind of my question as well. So you talk about, we have to have be prepared for significant investment, but we know that we already invest heavily in our.
Apologies. Sorry.
No, that's all right. Thought you might have had something to add. We already invest heavily in our three waters. So I'm wondering, do you know what, you've just said that you don't know exactly what we need to invest in and what the standards are. We know that at the moment they're pretty damn high. Do you have an idea of when we would get a timeline for that, when the government would expect us to meet those projected standards and investment?
Mr. Mayor, just I would suggest that we ask Three Waters to come and just give a briefing on the implementation plan. All of those dates were in the water service delivery plan as to when we have to meet those standards. And I think Gavin will be able to give you a good rundown, and Mitch from
Oh,
finance.
that might be good to have a refresh on
just
that.
have a refresh on it
Yeah.
now that it's been passed.
Yeah.
Because they're quite specific questions on water that I don't think Tom's sort of.
Right. And we already have pretty good strategies, don't we? Organisation. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Tyler, please, then Tim.
Yeah, Brent, the question actually was for you. Just wanted to, when you do bring that briefing, the question was for me, is our capital program good to go and deliver within that new framework? And if not, what would there be? That's just for
we'll cover
future
that.
briefings.
Yeah.
Yep. And the next question I've got is associated to financial implications between now and 2028. How much is this reform costing us, and will there be more implications over the next annual plan and long-term plan, preparing for that reform to be enacted?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have those numbers or anything in front of me at the moment. I don't know if Brent or
We'll take a note of all these questions and cover it in a specific. We did a lot of detailed financials leading into the plan, and we can speak to those.
Okay. And the last question is associated to that budget. Is BAU from the LTP that we've just put in with that 27, 28, 5%, is that including the water program? So we said yes to the long-term plan with that capital program for works and with water.
The existing
Yep.
program that you've
Yeah,
seen,
cool.
yes.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yep, thanks.
Yes, buddy. Tim.
Yeah, I just wonder, because when, as a council, all the South Island councils got together and met with DPMC, which turned out to be a group that turned into Te Mata Arawai. They didn't listen to councils at all. So I'm just wondering, what is the best way to connect with Wellington about our thoughts? Because if you look at, the comments with regards to ring fence funding, if you look at Wellington Water, their sludge treatment started at 200 million. It's in excess of 600 million now. So how can you ring fence that? Because any costs, whatever system and setup you've got, will return to council. And not only that, when the cost of putting in fluoride, which the central government's dodged and blamed for councils, and everyone rings their local councillor for that, the cost to that is huge. And it varies from, say, Christchurch, we're very different to others who have one source of water, say from a reservoir, whereas we've got to put it in 26 with whatever it is, how many pump stations. So I'm just wondering, what is the best way to try and connect with Wellington to explain our situation? Because at the moment, I don't believe we're going to be listened to. Because, I mean, this is just water, but I've got questions on building consents and a whole lot of others. But what is the best way that we can try? And, I think we spent good money on good systems. It's
Brent.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, I mean, we're in constant contact with Te Mata Arawai. We will be in constant contact with Commerce Commission when they come through, and through this whole process of the water service delivery plan, we've been in conversations with DIA. So we're going through the correct channels to try and influence anything or get any changes. Te Mata Arawai have been very good in terms of doing joint research with us. In answer to your question about those large projects such as Wellington Water's being faced with, yes, you can still ring fence it, but they'll probably set up a targeted rate to do so. So the water you collect for that purpose will pay for the project. So there are mechanisms in place. Yeah,
it's a flexible fence, let's be honest.
Well, no, it still means that if you collect the money for that purpose, it must be spent on that purpose. You can't use it for anything else. So that's enshrined in the legislation. Yeah.
So I mean, a dollar's a dollar wherever you put it. So if you're putting $5 in, but your fence is only allowing $2, so there's another $3 from somewhere else. But
the ratepayers still are paying for it. So, but I think
Correct.
the concern I have, and Tyler's question, I think it's a really good one. Can we get across to Wellington what this is costing us? Because they're saying that I think the term was rain in our fantasies. We've got to somehow get that across to Wellington, and it's not irrelevant what government it is, central government. It's those.
Yeah, I think you might be talking about a city or regional plan discussion.
Andre.
Thank you. I'm just a little bit concerned that we haven't yet applied for exemptions on any of the plan changes that we decided to do a couple of months ago. Just hoping to check on the status of that.
Work has been progressing since the council decision of September for applying. What became apparent after that meeting was the level of detail that the ministry is expecting. We looked at what other councils have applied for, and the level of evaluation goes down to rule by rule of does it achieve the criteria that the minister is expecting. So it has required additional work beyond what was initially anticipated, but it ultimately it will be shortly that we lodge. I'll confirm the date for that.
Are you planning to do all 5 at the same time? Are all 5 being treated as the same priority, if you will? Because
we're lodging one application for all 5.
The reason I ask is one of them, PC21, was one of our most responded to public consultations that we've ever done as a council. And Indigenous vegetation, I'm not sure the government are going to rush at to exempt, So I'm just wondering why we're putting as much prioritization as all 5, whereas some are clearly more urgent than others with the stadium about to open and beside them not allowed to do business.
We can certainly consider breaking it up into individual applications, but certainly the work's well advanced to lodge. I'll confirm the date.
Cool, thank you.
I think it's fair to say that they would just wipe out Indigenous vegetation. They might not.
Well, if you get the vibe after the last 2 years that this government are going to rush to do an exemption for Indigenous vegetation, that might be your feeling. But what I've noticed over the last couple of years is that they're not quite focused on that kind of thing, but very much.
I know, but we
that's the vibe I've got. Maybe I'm wrong. That's the vibe I've got.
Good discussion. Okay, right. So, Tom, have you got anything else you want? Sorry, Yanni. Yep.
Oh, thank you. So I was just going to check. In terms of the water reform, some of us went to the City Care AGM and heard some really interesting things from our council companies around what they're doing in that water space. So I was really keen to know if it was possible that we could look at talking to our companies, particularly the ones that are involved in water, to see what their view is around how we could do things more efficiently. Like Apex Water, for example, was the one that I would flag. And it was just to get a sense from them around what we're currently doing and if they had any wisdom into what we might be able to do things in a different way that was more efficient, more cost effective. And the second question was, I know that there was a meeting with the water regulator around the chlorination of our water. Are you able to give us an update on that and how progress is going to changing or getting progress on the exemption?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, on the first point, we already utilise and talk to and engage with Apex Water, and they were appropriate. We used them. The second one, we're inviting Te Mata Arawai down here to give you a further briefing, but we can arrange that along with those other specific questions you've asked on the water reforms.
So is there a time frame for getting an update from the meeting that was held between staff and the water regulator around the chlorination issue?
No.
So how do we get visibility of that?
We'll arrange a briefing on the water issues when we've got all the information for you, but there's no update at this stage.
Okay.
Council, you've got to remember that we're working to the rules put in place by the regulator to chlorinate the water to comply with the law. We've discussed this a number of times and the message has been the same. We have to keep doing that, and it's a long journey to get to the point where even small catchments would be able to apply for exemption from chlorine. We've discussed it a number of times around the table. We'll get Te Mata ROI back, and we will also get Three Waters to come in. Given up.
My understanding was, and someone else raised it, is that talking to government, everything I've seen from government has been really keen to reduce the red tape, reduce the bureaucracy, to make things more efficient. And even the Department of Internal Affairs, I think, when they came down and talked to us, showed an interest in actually finding some solutions to it. So I guess I get that at the current legal framework, you as staff, you have to work towards that. But at a governance level, I guess what I'm interested in is how do we put pressure or work with government to get the changes we need so that we don't have to go through a million hoops to get the exemption. Tonight we've got a meeting with the Minister of the South Island. You know, it'd be good to raise it, well, an online visual Zoom with 1,000 other elected members from the South Island, I think Aaron said. But, you know, like it would be good to be able to say to him, hey, here's something you could do. You're worried about the impact on rates. You're worried about councils being more efficient. Here's an example of something you could do overnight that would make a difference to us and save us money.
Okay, good. Tom, have you got anything more you want to add? You're all good? Everyone seems to be happy. Tim, another question. Yeah, no problem.
Just two quick ones, not on water. The first one is with the Building Act. Now that we're going to have people being able to issue their own building consents, who's going to, where will that fall if they're like the leaky homes, for instance? Where will that fall if there are faults? Is that going to fall back? Is the government pushing back or leaving it with us, or will government pick that up? Because inevitably there will be problems. It's just humans. So.
So you're referring to, for example, the granny flats scenario where they'll be able to build without building consent?
Well, BCA, for instance, we issued building consents.
Yeah.
And there's a push there for to be able to done privately without councils being involved.
Yep.
Because of the red tape, etc., which actually comes from Wellington. We won't go there. So if there is a fault with some of those being issued, who's going to pick that up?
So if we're not involved in that consenting, then there won't be us that picks up that liability.
That's cool. Thank you. And my final question is with the local government reforms. At the moment, if we have a code of conduct, neither the mayor or deputy mayor have teeth to enforce anything. Is that going to be something that is included in the new local government reforms? Because technically, what's the point of having a code of conduct if there's actually no ramification?
It's not currently intended that there is any additional enforcement. The proposal and the legislation does not include that.
So I like the term additional. Yeah, there's none at the moment. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, Kelly, have you on? Did you?
Yeah,
Kelly, and then lastly, Vic.
Thanks, Tom. Fantastic presentation. I'm intrigued by the concept of the rates cap and when, at best, that might get on our horizon. Do you have a bit of a sense of when that's going to happen? Should best case scenario it go ahead?
Well, we know that it's the policy is going to cabinet before Christmas. That's all we know. And apart from that, we're rather in the dark about it. What that will probably mean, and this is my interpretation, is that there may be an announcement at the time. There's a couple of things that could happen. There might be an announcement from the minister or department at the time that discusses what that policy is. If there, hopefully there would be, because then we can start thinking about it. Because it is quite a there's quite a few elements that could be involved in a rates cap. It's not necessarily a straightforward thing. If that doesn't happen, then that cabinet paper will be made public eventually anyway, about a month later, and we'd probably be in the new year, at some time in the new year, be able to see what the policy was that got put up to cabinet. The other thing that we don't know is whether it is just a policy that's going to cabinet for them to discuss, or if it's policy for them to confirm, like legislation be written about it. So we don't know at what stage that policy development is at either. So it is is a bit of a black box at the moment, and we just really have to wait and see. But I would imagine that we will be thinking about this most likely early next year.
Yeah, because excuse me, I see that, removes the 4 well-beings and new list of core services and measuring and reporting, increased transparency, accountability, etc. Do you think that will have a huge impact on us and what we're trying to deliver in terms of that sort of thing?
The amendment bill as a whole, the impact on us, there will be sort of twofold. I think in terms of bringing down the rates increases, as the intention of the bill is, I think that is quite questionable whether it will do that. And that's what we said in our submission. We know that rates increases recently have been driven by things like inflation, insurance premiums, interest rates, these sorts of things that have had an impact. And the bill does nothing to address those. The impacts that it will have will be largely around the things like the reporting and benchmarking and the increased scrutiny that I talked about around what we as a council are spending money on. That'll be compared with other councils, for example, and that'll be and we might, in terms of your first question as well, that might also be related to the rates caps in terms of whether a core or non-core activity and how much we can spend on those things, but we just don't know yet on that front.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, right. We now have 2 small questions. Victoria and then Pauline, and Pauline is the last one.
Tom, Building Act reform, in the upcoming initiatives, one of the bullet points was the shift from the joint and several liability to proportionate liability. Will that have a knock-on effect on our insurance?
Stefan, answer that one.
Particularly interested on whether it'll mean an increase or a decrease in our premiums, really.
So by shifting from joint and several to proportionate means that it would be more likely that council's liability will be limited to a certain percentage. So currently under the current joint and several, if there's a claim and a number of parties are joined to that claim, if some of those parties fall out of their claim because they go insolvent, for example, then the remaining parties split the cost. Under proportionate, it'll be capped at the 30%, whatever is found to. So in theory, that should be a lower insurance burden. That makes sense.
And Pauline, please.
Really pleased to see that they're going to, good luck to them, try and develop what is a core service. When are we likely to see that definition come to us? And did we put anything about that in our submission?
Yes.
We did.
So there is a list of 5 core services in the bill as it stands.
Yeah.
What we put, our take on it for the submission was actually a lot of what we spend our rates income on is those core services anyway.
93%.
90% above, yeah, that's right. So what we also said about it is that we suggested adding one more, which is around all the regulatory work that we are required to do and councils are required to do, which is a key part of the day-to-day business of the council that wasn't captured in the core services.
Right, and that's not just the other question is that when they're going to be demanding increased scrutiny and accountability, who pays for that? And if it's us, there'll be an extra cost to us as well. So that needs to be.
Yeah, so we as an organisation will have to update our reporting systems and everything to do that, and to make sure that they're getting benchmarked the same as everyone else across.
But that'll be an additional cost to us out of that remaining 7 or 10% that's not core business.
Yeah, I mean all these reforms will have a cost to council for us to adapt. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tom. That's good.